Welcome to the tutorial on post-traumatic stress disorder. So this, as you know, is a common question in CASC exams, and it's a standard question in order to take a history from a patient in order to reach the diagnosis. And in order to do well in stations like this, initially the first key thing to be familiar with are the criterion for the diagnosis of PTSD. And this also not only includes the range of symptoms that occur, but the onset that they occur within 6 months. In terms of having an exquisite stressor to cause it, and what I mean by that is that the stressor would cause just a pervasive and persistent distress in almost anyone that would have experienced that particular stressor, and then also having avoidance and arousal symptoms such as flashbacks and nightmares. I mean, interestingly, speaking to some of the psychologists that work here in London, it obviously was common in the years since the London bombings for them to be dealing with post-traumatic symptoms because of that particular incident. People were no longer coming to work, were needing to get signed off, as they could no longer travel on the underground, so they had avoidance there, weren't able to concentrate at work, couldn't deal with stressful situations at work, weren't sleeping very well, and also had flashbacks of the event. So let's talk about this particular example. So again, when I introduced myself and set the scene, he obviously didn't want to shake my hand. Again, don't be fazed by that. And again, that gives you some idea as to the patient's mental state. Some of the key things were when he obviously revealed to me what happened to him. It's demonstrating empathy to that event. And again, in terms of when we're eliciting these types of symptoms, it's very important to bear in mind that obviously every person coming into the exam will be familiar with all of the criterion for PTSD. And so the key thing is to ensure that you're not taking a tick box approach in your interview. So, for example, you're not reeling off. Do you get nightmares? Do you get flashbacks? Are you irritable? So you certainly won't be. You certainly don't want to be doing that in your interview. But again, what you want to be doing is to gently explore the symptoms with open questions. So, for example, saying, "I see you're restless. How are you sleeping? Then why is that?" And then inquire as to whether the patient has nightmares. I think just recalling the video, the actor was a little kind to me, just giving me the information straight away in terms of the nightmares. Or another example was when he mentioned that he was having difficulties with his girlfriend. It's saying something along the lines of, "You mentioned that your relationship with your girlfriend was difficult. Why was that?" As opposed to going, "Are you irritable?" And again, as I said, the actor was a little bit more forthcoming with the information during the interview, but if you recall, with PTSD, sufferers do have an inability to recall certain aspects, especially in terms of the period of the actual stressor. So that's something to just to bear in mind. One of the other things I certainly could have asked in the interview as well was this issue of gaining revenge. If he said quietly, "I should do," when I asked him about whether he wanted to gain revenge, and I could have explored that a little bit further. And it would also have been more important to see if he had any whether he did have any plans around this. So let's go on to just some of the key things that we're looking for in this station. So again, after I'd introduced myself and set the scene, we did an exploration of the onset and duration and progression of the symptoms, and also whenever we're looking at the symptoms, if you get the chance, also looking at symptom severity. So, for example, how often are the flashbacks occurring, for example. And so again, the types of things that we're looking for are are flashbacks, as we've mentioned, avoidance behaviours, emotional detachment or numbness, hyperarousal, things like gaining revenge or other angry ruminations about the event. Although not specific in this particular example, but potential feelings of guilt related to the trauma and the current impact it's having on the level of functioning. And looking at coping strategies, again, we're looking at the key thing there is whether they're abusing substances or not, and then going on to comorbidity. And in this particular 7-minute scenario, I just focused on depression, but the other coexisting conditions could be panic disorder as well, for example. And then I also looked at whether he had any ongoing compensation claims, and then also looked at potential past psychiatric history and premorbid personality to give me an idea of prognosis. So let's just go on to some of the key issues in the script. So again, after the introduction and setting the scene, I understand that you've been having difficulty at work. Could you share with me in your own words what's been happening? I see, and then when did this all start? And again, did anything happen at that time to make you feel like this? So again, and then the key thing there is that we're trying to confirm the onset of symptoms within 6 months of the event. And then again, when they disclose the trauma to you, it's having a statement of empathy about this. So an example I've got there is, again, that must have been an extremely distressing or horrible experience for you. And then these are just some of the examples of some of the ways I elicited the symptoms without it sounding like a tick box approach. So you said that you've been feeling restless. Have you been able to sleep? And then if they say no, and then again, why is that? And then you could inquire, do you ever get nightmares about what happened? How often are you thinking about the incident? Have you ever had occasions where you've been reliving the incident vividly? So again, looking for flashbacks. Then again, looking at questions on avoidance. I mean, I've got here, do you try to avoid taking the same route to work? Which could be one example. I mean, it might be a good idea if you have the time to prefix that with, have you had any problems with going to work? And they might say, I've been late to work, and why is that? And then eliciting the symptoms of avoidance that way. Or a question such as, have you ever been back to where it happened? And then no, and then why is that? Looking at symptoms of avoidance. If, say, it was a soldier that you were speaking to, and he'd come back from a tour of duty abroad, a question you could ask are you due to be redeployed there again? How does that make you feel? To look at symptoms of avoidance. Again, then moving on to hypervigilance. Do you feel more on edge than usual? Or making a comment on, I see that you're looking quite restless. Do you feel more on edge than usual? Or do small things get you frightened more easily? Could you give me an example? Okay. And then again, coping strategies. How have you been coping with all of this? Do you drink alcohol at all? Is it more often than usual? Do you take any other drugs at all? Okay. And obviously, this has been a very difficult time for you. How do you see the future at the moment? How would you describe your mood at the moment? And in terms of your general energy levels, how have they been? Are you managing to enjoy anything at all? And have you had any thoughts about not wanting to carry on? And again, just coming back to the point about exploring feelings of guilt or emotional detachment, again, that would be more relevant to if they were a soldier or fireman or police officer in a situation where they felt they could have acted differently. Then it is important to ask about guilt-associated symptoms. Okay, and then again, just coming on to the other aspects of the interview. Have you ever seen a psychiatrist before? And again, impact on relationships. Are you in a relationship at the moment? How have things been? How has your temper been? And again, it's depending on what they say there. Okay, and have your relationships with your friends been since the incident as well? Are there any compensation claims pending? And then again, some inquiries to their pre-morbid personality. Either, how would your friends describe it before this incident ever happened, or and then I've got, I obviously we always, in order to keep rapport going, I would use their name when I'm asking a question like this. So, John, I mean, if I'd met you before all of this had happened, how would you have described yourself? As one example. Okay, so let's briefly talk about PTSD. The risk of developing it in the general population after exposure to a major life event is around 10 to 15%, and it's more common in women than men. Okay, and then going on to some risk factors for PTSD. Again, this certainly isn't an exhaustive list, just some of the key ones to try and bear in mind. And the first one is if you have a pre-morbid anxious personality type, that can put you more at risk to developing PTSD versus whether you are more hardened and have a psychopathic type personality. The way I try to remember that is, if you think of someone like James Bond, who was quite clearly had some types of psychopathic personality issues, and he never got post-traumatic stress disorder in any of the films that I've seen. So that's the way I remember that. If you've got a low IQ, that puts you more at risk compared to whether you have a higher intelligence level. A low self-esteem is also a risk factor, as well as having a past psychiatric history. Again, as I said, none of the things here are exhaustive. It's just to keep things at the back of your mind. Comorbidity, as we've looked at, depression and anxiety symptoms, as well as coping strategies, which would be substance use, including alcohol abuse. Also to bear in mind, if it's more of a complex PTSD case, for example, if they've had previous histories of childhood sexual abuse, for example, then other comorbid issues could involve eating disorders, chronic suicidality, or severe dissociative symptoms. Okay. And then in terms of differential diagnosis, again, I've got a number of things written there. Obviously, stress reactions, an adjustment disorder, personality changes if the symptoms have been there for more than 2 years, depression, anxiety, again, in terms of irritability and withdrawal, panic disorders, and OCD, again, that's scraping the barrel in terms of whether they're having persistent thoughts or reminders of the event. And then coming on to management again, as I'm sure you're familiar with some of the things on this particular slide. I put in there trauma-focused cognitive behavioural therapy, which was in the NICE guidelines issued in 2005. And generally, CBT is used more for single index traumas, so where there's one specific event, as opposed to more complex multiple traumas or developmental traumas such as childhood sexual abuse. And then just thinking about the cognitive distortion which occurs in PTSD. The cognitive distortion is that there's a past event is perceived to be still causing a persistent threat in the present day. And so CBT would focus on a number of different strategies to help them process that memory in a less stressful way to deal with that perception. So, for example, talking about the trauma or reliving it in terms of behavioural therapy. It does have a strong evidence base that it does work. However, as you can imagine, it does have quite a high withdrawal rate, because it's very difficult work in that they do have to disclose information about the traumatic event, and they can get worse during the therapy before they actually do start to get better. And then EMDR is something which I'm sure you know about, and that focuses on processing memories using cicada guide movements, as well as which involves using imaginal exposure, some aspects of cognitive therapy, and elements of other types of stimulation using sort of tapping or tones during each of the sessions. And support groups and family therapy are also effective, dependent on the patient's circumstances, along with pharmacological treatment. And pharmacological treatment, again, high-dose SSRIs are, for example, sertraline are an example of what's used. Again, this isn't obviously a comprehensive lecture into PTSD. And again, other adjunctive medications one could use are mood stabilizers if they're hyper-aroused, if the hyper-arousal symptoms are severe, sleeping tablets, obviously, or again the judicious use of benzodiazepines, dependent on each particular patient. Okay, and then in terms of some prognostic factors. Again, as you remember, chronic PTSD has a poor prognosis and is more difficult to treat. So early recognition and treatment can help is with the prognosis. Obviously, having a supportive social environment is very useful, where they're able to talk about their experiences in a non-judgmental environment, and they're encouraged not to avoid situations or encouraged not to drink, and also trying to get some type of closure on the event, so they're not dealing with ongoing issues secondary to the initial trauma. I mean, depending on how severe the stretcher actually is, generally half of people who do develop PTSD do tend to recover in the first year, and about the other 20 to 30% do have ongoing symptoms. And then in terms of possible alternate scenarios, again, with the things that I could think of are obviously having a different type of traumatic scenario. So a soldier coming back from war, reliving the events at home, policeman or fireman involved in a potentially traumatic issue. I mean, in some of the questions I've seen, if they give a clue to the person's profession in the question, then and they're presenting with anxiety symptoms, then there is then you certainly do need to keep it back in mind that this could be a PTSD station that you're about to walk into. But the other thing to bear in mind is that they may not make it completely obvious to begin with, and the patient might have anxiety, he may just be withdrawn. So again, the key things are obviously at the beginning of the station of asking open questions and looking for specific precipitants. So I hope that's useful for you for dealing with PTSD stations that come up in the CASC. As again, continue practicing, and I'll see you in the next